In a quiet town, nestled at the edge of a dense forest, there lived a man named Henry. Henry was once a well-respected craftsman, known for his skill and integrity, but after a series of unfortunate events, a fire that destroyed his workshop, the passing of his beloved wife, and mounting debts, he found himself on the brink of ruin. His children had all grown and left, and Henry felt utterly alone. One evening, with nothing left but a tattered backpack and a few coins in his pocket, Henry decided to leave his town behind. He set off into the unknown, toward the vast wilderness beyond. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he had to escape the pain and sorrow that had weighed him down for so long. Henry wandered deep into the forest, guided by nothing more than a glimmer of hope that somewhere, somehow, a new life awaited him. As the trees thickened and the path grew darker, the forest seemed to whisper his name, pulling him deeper into its mysterious embrace. Before we continue with Henry's incredible journey, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories. As night fell, Henry stumbled upon an abandoned cabin hidden beneath the towering trees. The door creaked open, and inside he found signs of life: old photographs, furniture covered in dust, and a fire that had burned out long ago. Yet the place felt eerily familiar, as though he had been there before. He sat by the cold fireplace, staring at an old, faded photograph of a woman and a child. Who were they? Why did they seem to stir something deep inside him? Suddenly, a gust of wind slammed the door shut, and Henry felt a chill crawl down his spine. Something was watching him from the shadows. He could feel it. But what was it? A ghost from his past, or the spirits of the forest calling out to him? Henry sat frozen in the cabin, his eyes locked on the photograph in his trembling hands. He could hear the wind howling outside, but inside it was unnervingly quiet. Too quiet. His heart pounded as the shadows around him seemed to grow darker, twisting into eerie shapes that danced on the walls. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the growing fear. "It's just my imagination," he told himself. But deep down, Henry knew there was something more. Something was calling him, pulling him deeper into the mystery of this place. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed through the room. Henry shot up, scanning the small cabin, but there was no one there. Another knock, louder this time. He turned toward the door, his breath catching in his throat. Slowly, cautiously, he approached. The door creaked as he pulled it open, revealing nothing but the dark, foreboding forest. "Hello," he called out, his voice barely a whisper. No answer, just the wind and the rustling of leaves. But as he stepped back inside, Henry noticed something strange. On the floor, near the doorway, lay a folded piece of paper, old and yellowed with age. It hadn't been there before. His hands shook as he bent down to pick it up. Unfolding the paper, he saw words scribbled in a handwriting that seemed all too familiar. "Find the path beyond the trees. It will lead you to what you've lost." Henry's pulse quickened. What could this mean? Who left the note, and how did they know him? He glanced out into the dark forest, fear battling with curiosity. Determined to uncover the truth, Henry packed what little he had and left the cabin behind. The note had mentioned a path beyond the trees, so he headed deeper into the forest, where the moonlight barely pierced through the thick canopy. Every step he took seemed to echo in the silence, as though the very forest was watching him. As he ventured further, he stumbled upon a narrow, overgrown trail. It seemed almost invisible in the moonlight, but something told him this was the path he was meant to follow. With every step, the forest grew darker, the shadows closing in, and strange whispers filled the air. They weren't coming from the wind, they were voices, low and haunting, whispering his name. "Henry, come closer." Panic surged in his chest. He wanted to turn back, to run away from whatever was out there, but something inside him refused to let go. There was a pull, an unshakable feeling that whatever lay at the end of this path would change his life forever. Hours seemed to pass as Henry walked deeper into the unknown, the whispers growing louder, the air colder. Just as he felt he couldn't go any further, he emerged from the trees into a wide clearing. And there it was. A massive oak tree stood in the center of the clearing, ancient and imposing, its gnarled branches stretching toward the sky. But what caught Henry's attention was the small wooden door built into the base of the tree, almost hidden among the roots. The whispers stopped. The forest was silent again, as if waiting for him to take the next step. With trembling hands, Henry reached for the door. Henry stood before the wooden door, embedded in the ancient oak tree, his heart racing. His hand hovered over the rough, weathered wood, hesitant to open it. The voices had stopped, the eerie calm of the forest hanging heavy in the air. It was as though the very trees were holding their breath, waiting for him to take that final step. With a deep breath, Henry grasped the rusted iron handle and pulled. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into the earth, dimly lit by flickering lanterns hanging from the stone walls. For a moment, Henry hesitated. Everything about this felt impossible, yet he couldn't turn back now. He had come too far. He descended the steps, the air growing colder with each step. The walls were damp, the stones slick under his fingers. As he reached the bottom, the narrow tunnel opened into a large underground chamber. At the center of the room, illuminated by the glow of the lanterns, stood an old wooden table. And on that table, something glimmered, a small, ornate chest. Henry approached cautiously, his eyes wide with disbelief. The chest looked ancient, covered in intricate carvings that seemed to pulse with a faint light. He reached out and gently lifted the lid. Inside was a small, delicate locket, its silver chain shimmering in the dim light. Henry's breath caught in his throat. It was the same locket he had given his wife years ago when they were young, full of hope and dreams for the future. The sight of it brought a rush of memories. Happy times, their love, their family. But how did it end up here, in this strange, forgotten place? As he held the locket in his hand, something incredible happened. The walls of the chamber seemed to shimmer, and suddenly, Henry wasn't standing in the underground room anymore. He was in a sunny field, the sound of laughter filling the air. He turned and saw her, his wife, younger, vibrant, running through the field with their children. The scene was so vivid, so real, it brought tears to his eyes. But as quickly as it came, the vision faded, and Henry was back in the cold chamber, the locket still in his hand. He realized now what the journey had been about. It wasn't about riches or a new life. It was about reconnecting with what he had lost. The love, the memories, the life he had once shared with his family. Tears streamed down his face as he held the locket close to his chest. The weight of grief and regret lifted from his shoulders. He finally understood that while he couldn't change the past, he could carry those memories with him, letting them guide him toward a future of peace and healing. As he turned to leave the chamber, the whispers began again, but this time they were soft, kind. They weren't calling him into the shadows anymore. They were guiding him back home, back to the life he had left behind. Henry retraced his steps through the forest, the weight in his chest now replaced by a sense of calm. The forest no longer felt menacing. It felt alive, protective, as though it had guided him to this moment. The locket glowed faintly in his hand as he made his way back to the cabin. When Henry returned to the edge of the forest, the sun was rising, casting a golden light over the town. He felt different, lighter, more at peace. He had come to the wilderness seeking an escape from his past. But what he found was something much more precious: the strength to carry on. Henry's journey through the mysterious forest had led him back to his past, to the memories he had tried to escape. But in facing those memories, he found healing, closure, and a new sense of purpose. Life would never be the same, but now he knew that he could carry the love of his family with him wherever he went.